Donald Trump just blamed President Biden for the flooding in Texas.
These two sitting behind me are responsible for every life lost due to the floodings in Texas.
Please welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Belinda Strana. Thank you so much for all the love and support. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and also educate each and every one of us. You guys are the real MVPs. I came across this video right for you, and I thought to share where Americans are reacting to the flood that happened in Texas, which actually took a lot of people's properties and also took lives. I'm just going to roll the clip as well as some of other stitches I was able to put together, because they are actually blaming all of this on Democrat. Please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think. Subscribe to this channel if you're here to do that, and please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. We're just here for educational and informative purposes. All right,
Donald Trump just blamed President Biden for the flooding in Texas. Let me explain this. When asked by a reporter whether or not they were looking into whether federal funding being cut led to people being unprepared for the flooding along the Guadalupe River that has resulted in more than 70 individuals, including children as young as third graders, losing their lives, President Trump said, "Oh, that's all Biden stuff. That was a Biden setup, but I wouldn't blame him either." Essentially saying that all of the stuff that happened along the Guadalupe River was Joe Biden's fault, but he's not going to blame him. This was a 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 year flooding event, if you listen to people on the media, but it happened in 1987. That being said, still, more than 70 individuals across 5 counties have lost their lives because of these floods. More than 10 campers are still missing from Camp Mystic, and the President of the United States, instead of taking accountability and taking responsibility and putting people on the ground to help the situation, is blaming the former president. Just as his Department of Homeland Security secretary blamed the alarm system and local officials blamed the weather officials. Republicans cannot take ownership for anything that happens on their watch. They always have to have somebody to blame.
So let's get this straight, guys. For months, meteorologists, experts, and media outlets warned that Donald Trump's budget cuts to the National Weather Service were reckless, and that slashing funding and gutting staff would directly hurt their ability to predict severe storms, that it would put lives in danger. And now, right on cue, a deadly flood hits Texas, and state officials are turning around and blaming the Weather Service for inaccurate forecast. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? This is what happens when you hollow out public safety in the name of politics and cruelty. The NWS isn't some luxury. It's not a partisan tool. It's the reason families get warnings in time. It's the reason people evacuate. It's the reason kids make it home from school before the storm hits. But Donald Trump's second term has made it crystal clear. If a program protects people and saves lives but doesn't align with his agenda or help his image, he'll gut it, no matter who it hurts. And then, when disaster strikes, just like the experts said it would, they blame the very people that they've undercut. It's scapegoating at its most cowardly. This flood was tragic, but it wasn't just a freak accident of nature, guys. It was a failure of leadership, a predictable consequence of dismantling the very systems designed to keep us safe. If you're more concerned with scoring political points than funding the people who literally track deadly storms for a living, then you are the danger to public safety.
These two idiots sitting behind me are responsible for every life lost due to the floodings in Texas. I know people are going to come in and say, "Oh, don't make this political." It is political. You elected this fucking buffoon, and this idiot put this idiot in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency and got rid of waste and fraud, right? That's exactly what you guys were cheering on this entire time. The reason why Texas wasn't given far enough in advance warning is because they cut funding to everything that they needed to be able to receive that warning. Now, what happened and what is happening sucks. I wish nobody harm, but I have no empathy towards people that can't come around to the realization that this is the problem. This is what you get when you put idiots in charge of the country that don't care about you. Think to yourself, They cut funding to all of these agencies that are supposed to help you, but they didn't cut any funding to any billionaires or corporations ever.
As you've grown accustomed to my presentations over my 34 years in South Florida newscasts, confidently, I went on TV and I told you it's going to turn. You don't need to worry. It is going to turn. And I am here to tell you that I am not sure I can do that this year because of the cuts, the gutting, the sledgehammer attack on science in general, and I could talk about that for a long, long time, and how that is affecting the U.S. Leadership in science over many years, and how we're losing that leadership, and this is a multi-generational impact on science in this country, all right? But specifically, let's talk about the federal government cuts to the National Weather Service and to NOAA. Did you know that Central and South Florida National Weather Service offices are currently basically 20 to 40% understaffed? From Tampa to Key West, including the Miami office, 20 to 40% understaffed. Now, this type of staffing shortage is having impacts across the nation because there's been a nearly 20% reduction in weather balloon launches that carry those radiosondes. And what we're starting to see is that the quality of the forecasts is becoming degraded. There's also a chance, because of some of these cuts, that NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft will not be able to fly this year, and with less reconnaissance missions, we may be flying blind. And we may not exactly know how strong a hurricane is before it reaches the coastline, like happened a couple of years ago in Hurricane Otis in Acapulco, Mexico. So I was asked to talk about this today. I'm glad I was. I just want you to know that what you need to do is call your representatives and make sure that these cuts are stopped. And
this tragedy at the Guadalupe River in Camp Mystic, where there are 27 people reported unalive, 20 girls still missing. Camp Mystic and all of the other tragedies that have happened because of this flood were preventable. If our National Ocean and Atmosphere Association, that is our National Weather Service, had not had its funding dramatically cut by Donald Trump with his Trump tax, these things save lives. These warnings, these studies, they save lives. This is what our tax dollars are supposed to go to. This is what we pay taxes for, is so that the citizens can be warned or protected in tragic events like this. And instead, we are filling the pockets of people who already have too much money instead of caring about the safety of little children. And then we talk about how it's a once in a 500-year flood, but it's not going to be. And they know that. And that's why funding has been cut from these organizations that are so vital in the research of climate change, because it doesn't fit the view that their constituents want, because their voters don't want to believe that we have destroyed the world and that we continue to do so that we can have certain luxuries and amenities and comforts. But I'm telling you, this is the start. It is not a once in a lifetime thing. It is the first of many to come for the rest of our lifetime. This tragedy should never have happened. If we still had our warning systems and our research in place, it wouldn't have. The blood of all of these innocent people who have become unalive due to this tragedy is on the hands of this administration. And for everyone who voted for this administration, knowing this is what they would do. The Navy has been made to stop sharing satellite update information with NOAA, the National Oceans and Atmosphere Association, the ones that I've talked about, who are our warning system, who do all the research and save so many lives in the past. Just another example of it doesn't matter until it takes lives and it affects people. But at that point, it's too late. So how much longer? How many more lives do we need to lose unnecessarily to understand that we can pay taxes and that the billionaires can pay their fair share of taxes? Because I'm telling you, they don't care about us. By they, I mean the elite wealthy, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, the ones who can afford not to care because they think their money protects them. We need to stop this. If we don't, it might be someone who goes unalive next.
Nothing about what's happening in Texas with the flooding is funny, and they do not deserve it, okay? You see this narrative happen a lot with climate emergencies in red states, and they go, well, that's who you voted for. That's who you voted for. Thing number one is that actual people have lost their lives and children are missing. And thing number two, which truly shouldn't matter or change your opinion, but the area that got flooded did go to Kamala Harris. But something that's upsetting to me as a Louisiana native is that I'm seeing some of this sentiment come from black folks, the entire FAFO crowd, right? And because the South is where the majority of historically black communities are, I want y'all to go on a thought experiment with me, okay? So something that could happen is that during this administration, we end up in a Katrina 2 type scenario. One, because Trump has defunded the National Weather Service, making it more difficult to prepare for climate emergencies, as well as climate change just sort of rapidly escalating the amount of climate emergencies we're having on a regular basis. And then you add onto that Trump is completely defunding FEMA. They're trying to eliminate it by this year and then reconstruct it for the 2026 hurricane season. So in situations where FEMA doesn't have the bandwidth to handle whatever's happening, the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, can also be activated during climate emergency. ICE is under the DHS, and they just got a huge budget boost to the tune of like $100 billion, and they've spent the last 6 months acting as Trump's personal secret police. And as is the story with climate emergencies in historically black communities, black people end up getting labeled as looters and robbers as they try to forage for water, food, and shelter. And so a department that has been heavily militarized and has been trained to be absolutely brutal gets deployed in a city in which it's meant to restore order. And we end up in another Danziger Bridge situation, which I advise you to look it up. I can't go into the details because I said the details the first time and it got my video hella suppressed. Nothing is going to be funny about that. Trump is not a punishment for people in red states. Trump is not a punishment for the fact that the minority of Hispanic people voted for Trump. Trump is not a punishment for the people who did vote for. And not only that, but a degradation of anyone's rights is a degradation of your rights. Nothing about this is funny. They don't deserve this. It's not a bit, and you're also not safe from the potential of this coming back to you.
Did you know that there are 27 Republican state governors out of the 50 United States? And out of that same number, there are several states in the United States that hasn't seen a Democrat governor in over 30 years. Let that sink in. Texas haven't seen a Democrat governor since 1991. Idaho since 1991. North Dakota since 1988. Utah since 1977. Nebraska 1994. And there's only one that hasn't seen a Democrat governor in over 50 years. And can you guess that state? It's South Dakota. My point is this. Some of these states are at the bottom of being in the worst public school ranking here in the United States. They blame the Democrats for their failures. They blame the Democrats for their infrastructure issues, immigration problems, and crime. These are the same individuals, same states that have been Republican governors for decades, yet they complain and blame Democrats. I got one message for MAGA and the Trump supporters who think you're not being played by your lawmakers.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Why was the National Weather Service not pinging their phones before 7 o'clock the day of 4th of July? We need the federal people to answer that maybe for us. I got updates at 7 o'clock, first one I heard. And I've heard updates throughout the week, but not before 7 o'clock in the morning. Wasn't that a fundamental failure of the federal government's responsibility to keep us safe?
My background is before I was in the secretary position here under the Trump administration, I was governor of South Dakota and served in Congress for 8 years before I was governor. And so I will tell you that for decades, for years, everybody knows that the weather is extremely difficult to predict, but also that the National Weather Service over the years at times has done well, and at times we have all wanted more time and more warning and more alerts and more notification. That is something, and one of the reasons that when President Trump took office, that he said he wanted to fix, and is currently upgrading the technology, and the National Weather Service has indicated that with that and NOAA that we needed to renew this ancient system that has been left in place with the federal government for many, many years, and that is the reforms that are ongoing there. The timeline that I have, I don't oversee the National Weather Service. That's not under my department.
If you care about the Texas floods, you need to hear the news that the New York Times just broke, because we learned yesterday that the National Weather Service's forecasts were not to blame. No weather balloon launches were missed. Forecasts did predict heavy rain, and notifications of flooding were given hours in advance. The issue was that the warnings went out in the middle of the night. Someone has to get the information and act on it. Someone with a job title of, I don't know, how about a warning coordination meteorologist, which is the name of one of the empty positions in the National Weather Service's San Antonio field office. Why is it vacant, you might ask? This position, which, and I quote, is meant to work with local emergency managers to plan for floods, including when and how to warn local residents and help them evacuate. This position has been vacant since April 30th because the person who was in that job took Trump's early retirement package. Now, that's the San Antonio office, which covers a much larger downstream area from where the major flooding occurred. San Angelo office, which covers Kerr County, was missing a senior hydrologist, staff forecaster, and meteorologist in charge. Overall, between the two offices covering the flood area, the job vacancy rate is double what it was when Trump took office. This all points at a much larger issue that Trump and his MAGA cult just do not understand. Yes, it is annoying that we live in a world with frustrating, unpredictable problems. And yes, it is expensive to deal with those frustrating and unpredictable problems. But it's the reality we live in, even if it's a reality that Trump is incapable of facing. Because what we're seeing right now is the consequence of his ignorant, naive fantasy, where he can fix everything faster than anyone else, where he can make everything better than anyone else, and where he can do everything cheaper than anyone else. And the best news is, it only takes 2 weeks. Sorry, America, but that's con man shit. And 75 million Americans played the role of the mark perfectly.
I seriously love this. The thing is that none of these Republicans will actually blame anyone than to blame themselves. Like, they will go as far as to blame everyone rather than blaming themselves. So it happens that there was a flood controversy that happened in Texas, which resulted to people losing their lives and properties. It also happened that there are some group of teenagers or little ones that went camping. I saw that camping situation on the social platform, and I was like, oh my god, this is just so serious. So this group of teenagers went for camping, and as a result of the flood in Texas, but so many of them, about 20 something of them, lost it all. But thankfully, I was going through my For You, and I saw that 2 of them has actually been recovered. They were all, both of them were hung on the tree, like they were just standing on the tree until when the help comes. And it happens that 2 of these girls were recovered. And people were like, thankful for that. But there are still other people still missing, still lost their lives. And instead of these people to actually blame the workers, they are all around looking for whom to apportion blames, without even having this realization that due to the cuts, the budget cuts, the dodge and everything, you wouldn't relieve people of their duties and you having shortage of workers and expect things to run smoothly. Like, they are so eager to cut off people's front, relieve people of their duties without any safe measures. And now, instead of them to blame it on their mistake, they're trying to like blame it on the previous administration. Like these Republicans, we actually don't want to blame themselves rather than to blame every other person. You know, the whether broadcaster or whatever didn't have a prediction correctly, and instead of them to like try to like get to the root of the issue, they are trying to blame someone else. And this has always been what has been happening in all of this. I just feel so sorry for those people that that's been affected one way or the other. Those ones that actually lost it all, lost the families and all of that. Let's just take for instance that all of these things happening right now is happening, and Kamala Harris was the one in charge. Like, what do you think might happen? What, like, what do you think that people will say? What do you think that the society, like, oh my God, we said it, she's incompetent? Or like, I just want to see that energy, the dragging. I want to see that dragging that, you know, this present administration has been doing a whole lot. And MAGA supporters are still like, oh yeah, let's just blame it to these other people. Let's blame it over to them without even them trying to figure it out. They knew exactly what they are doing. They don't care about anyone. And it also happened that during the course of this whatsoever, the young man was actually on a golf cruise. Like he was playing golf, and some group of Latino rescue team decided to travel down to Texas. Decided to travel down to Texas to rescue some of these people that is being affected by the flood. And the thing is that the internet is not even um putting out this. They're not putting out this in place. The same people that they are chasing out to get out from this country, you don't belong there, have to travel for a very long distance to go save these people, to go rescue these Texas occupancies. You know? Like, anyway, lovelies, wanna just leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. We're just here for educational and informative purposes. So lovelies, if you've not subscribed to this channel, do your girl a huge favor to click on the subscription button. Like, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one. Just leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please lovelies, if you've not subscribed to this channel, do your girl a huge favor to click on the subscription button. Like, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.